behalf of RPC, as Kim mentioned, which is a joint venture with BMW. For some of you possibly who've attended, this is actually our third session in the joint job club. So I've really enjoyed working with Kim and Macomb to offer this during these remote times. This is definitely not something that we typically do. BMW created this joint venture and this specific team to actually partner with the BMW dealerships across the country. And our specific role is clearly to just recruit for automotive technicians. And I know some of you on the presentation today may not necessarily be in the automotive field, but keep in mind as we go through this deck, it is aimed toward automotive students, but clearly if you're in a different field, you can actually take this information and change it to fit your industry. But the unique thing again with this joint venture is BMW has invested the resources, and we have a team of 11 professional recruiting professionals across the country. Myself, I'm in Ohio, so I support the central market. We support over 300 BMW dealers in 48 states. And what we have done during these remote times when our hiring obviously has been a little slow, great news is we have a call today and things are really picking up. So we're excited to hear that. So it sounds like they're starting to definitely do some hiring again. And the dealers are becoming a little more busy. So that's very positive news. But what we've done is we basically said, what can we do to help our educational partners? And we've also been offering some of this to candidates that we just have through our own network of resources through LinkedIn and other means to offer a 4-part series. So we've done a resume, we've done a portfolio. This is the third in this series, which is social media. And then finally, we are offering an interviewing skills class, which includes in-person and also virtual, because again, this Zoom and virtual is obviously very new to a lot of individuals. So we put this free offering together and offering it to our educational partners, which we've been really happy to do. So today we'll spend probably the next 25 minutes or so together. We'll definitely have room for questions at the end. If you do have a question, if you want to unmute, feel free. We'll try to keep an eye on that and ask you questions as we go through. We're going to touch upon how your resume really fits a social media profile. We're going to discuss your personal social media, keeping it clean, what to make sure that you're on the positive side that you're doing, and then also some things that you need to be aware of that employers are looking at in your social media. And then specifically LinkedIn, which is something that our RPC team uses pretty much, I would say probably more than any other social media platform as we're doing recruiting. And then also offer up some automotive technician forums that would be good for individuals in this industry to connect with. Again, keeping in mind if you're in a different industry on the call today, not a problem. There are tons of different forums out there that would fit your specific educational and professional background that you definitely should do some research on and try to connect with. So I guess we'll touch upon why use social media. You have a resume, you're actively looking for a position, maybe you're not actively looking for a position right now, and you really don't really understand why do I need to spend the time doing that. Very important in today's world. 80% of employers say that social recruiting helps them find passive candidates. And just keep in mind, a passive candidate is different than an active candidate. An active candidate is someone that's, obviously actively looking for employment. A passive candidate may be someone that is not necessarily looking right now. They're in their industry. Maybe I'm an automotive technician today. I'm happy, but you never know, right? Like you should always be networking and making sure that you're having that broad network of individuals, because you never know when you're going to be in a situation where you're active, all of a sudden you're actively looking for a role, or maybe someone comes along. And what I've always shared with individuals, the best time to find a job is when you have a job, because I think you take your time and you thoughtfully think it through a little bit more. So I always tell my candidates, always take 5 minutes to listen to the opportunity, because you never know. And on the flip side, my son's in high school and he wants to play college hockey, and he's getting a lot of calls. And even if it's a school the states away, we know that he's not going to do. We always take that call, because again, you never know if that coach is in California today, but maybe they move into a different market tomorrow, and you've had the time to make that connection. So it's always very important to make sure that you're taking that phone call. 70% of hiring managers say they successfully hired using social media. 79% of job applicants use social media in their job search. So again, predominantly most of the candidates out there are already using social media in some form. And the final stat here, 91% of employers are using social media to hire talent today. So it would be interesting to go back even 3 years ago and see how much these numbers have increased. A few different platforms here we'll touch upon. Obviously, you've got Twitter and Instagram. I would say this would be more for probably sharing project type information, networking with other technicians in your industry. I would say that from a recruiting perspective, it's not widely used to source candidates. And making sure that you're looking at the personal versus the professional consideration there. I would say that a lot of individuals are using those formats more for a personal perspective. And we'll get into making sure that you're also watching what you're posting, even if it's from a personal perspective. Secondly, there's Facebook. I would say that definitely there are some candidates that are sourcing for positions, excuse me, using Facebook. Personally, I stick with LinkedIn. I also think this is a good forum to, share your information and your passion. If you're doing, as an example, automotive, if you've worked on a big restoration project, something like that, posting that or connecting with some Facebook forums, also probably a good idea, making sure that you're keeping your personal and professional considerations out there. And then finally, LinkedIn. And really LinkedIn is probably the best platform for professional networking. That's why it was created. It's a free service. They're actually just specifically looking at automotive technicians, over 750,000 automotive technicians in this LinkedIn world. So again, it's something that we heavily source, when we're trying to identify candidates. And again, I would say probably 6 out of 10, let's say maybe 4 out of 10 individuals that I reach out to may actually be interested in a position, but I'm still connecting with them and, continuing to network, because even though they're not interested, they may have someone that they know that is interested in an opportunity, and connecting that way. So just to touch on, again, as far as social media and the personal aspects from the business aspects, just a few stats here to note from Career Builder. This poll was from 2018, so it's just a few years dated, but it's some really good information here. 66% of employers that they polled said that they use a search engine to research candidates. Let me push this down here so we can see. Research candidates. So if I'm looking for an individual, I'm going to type in Sally Smith in that search engine and see what comes up. 47% of employers say if they can't find a candidate, they're less likely to call for an interview, which I find that being an interesting stat. So personally, I would contact them specifically as a recruiter, but from an employer perspective, when they're doing their research, they say if they can't find that individual out there with a social media presence, they're not likely to interview that individual. The next stat here talks a little bit about gathering information on a candidate. Honestly, I thought this would possibly be a little bit higher, but 28% said that they're going to go out and gather information on a candidate before calling them for an interview. So the employers are definitely starting to do some of that research in those social media networks prior to bringing individuals in to interview. And then finally, 58% of employers who use a social networking site to research job candidates say that they're actually looking for information that supports that candidate's professional qualifications. So this just tells me that, you know, even though they're doing a background check, which typically is not going to happen until they present a verbal offer to a candidate, they're out there doing their homework before. If they are part of a group that they're seeing, let's say, you know, for myself, Human Resource Association, they're going to go out to that Human Resource Association site and see that, you know, Tamara O'Flynn is in fact connected. Or they're going to go out and look at my LinkedIn profile and see that, you know, I said I had 3 to 5 years of experience, and my social media LinkedIn information mirrors that I have 3 to 5 years of experience in that specific industry or field. So really some interesting stats here, I think. So we're going to touch on a few of the areas that are probably a little more negative or visible on a profile that you definitely want to stay away from here. And we'll just briefly go through these. Obviously, you can read through them, but these are the primary reasons when this poll was done again by Career Builder a few years ago that caused employers not to hire a qualified candidate. First and foremost, provocative photos or videos out on their social media sites, finding information where they're doing heavy drinking or using drugs on the social media site, which that kind of floors me why you would be doing that. And then secondly, that you would be posting it, but it happens. Discriminatory commentary, posts linked to criminal behavior, poor communication skills, lying about qualifications. That goes back to kind of what we just touched on the prior slide. This is a big one, bad mouthing previous employers. And I definitely say that, oops, if that was me or you, Kim, sorry. Bad mouthing prior employers. And I would definitely say this is something that I see frequently. And, you know, regardless of how difficult your prior situation was with an employer, you always want to take the high road. Because if you're getting hired into a new role, that employer is going to be less likely to hire you because they're going to think, hey, if something goes south, you know, I don't want them going around bad mouthing, you know, me as their employer. So definitely try to take the high road there and stay away from posting any of that on social media. Screen name is unprofessional. We talked a little bit about this. If any of you attended the resume webinar that we did, making sure that if you have an email account that is professional in nature, this kind of goes to the same thing. Sharing confidential information from previous employers, also a big no-no. Lying about an absence. So again, I would say this goes to present employees. If you call off sick for a day and then you're posting a bunch of pictures at the beach, that's probably a no-no. And then posting too frequently. So someone that's maybe a little more overzealous in social media. So on the flip side, let's hit on some positive things that employers are looking for on